All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Lindsay Bernhagen. I'm the director of the Center for Inclusive Teaching and Learning. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm so excited to see how many people have carved out time in this very bizarre start to 2021 to gather together and learn from our colleagues. We have a great lineup for our teaching conference today. This is our 25th year of doing this at UWSP. It's our first year doing it virtually. So we will get more time on Zoom, which I'm sure everybody was craving. I'm especially excited for our first session, which is our interactive theater presentation, Learning During COVID-19. This project was directed in large part by Sarah Ross from the Theater and Dance Department, who's also CITL's faculty fellow. Those of you who were able to attend the teaching conference last year probably remember the interactive theater program that we had then, which was just a tremendous success. Thankfully, the Theater and Dance Department has been doing all sorts of incredible things with virtual performances. So they were willing to share that expertise and that experience with us to provide us with a great performance experience today. I'm really excited for the time we get to spend together. If you have any issues, feel free to chat us. CITL staff is in the room to help out with any technical issues. And that's about it. So I'm going to hand it over to Sarah and to Ka to take us through learning during COVID-19 from the student perspective.
Hello, I'm Sarah Ross. As Lindsay said, I work in the Department of Theater and Dance, and I want to introduce Ka Yang, who is our project manager and chief dramaturg for the interactive theater project. She'll take us through the day, and we'll be presenting a couple of scenarios for y'all for discussion. Can we stop screen sharing this slide? So Ka, yeah, thank you. Ka, take it away.
Okay, so actually I would like to give this to Eva Bower, who would start us off with a short exercise. So Eva, if you could do so.
Hi, everyone. So as we begin, I would just like to invite everyone to close their eyes. If you would, please. You may also turn your cameras off if that is what you prefer. And we're just going to go through a few breath cycles to, bring us into the space. And as you do these, just start to become aware of the space that you're in. So let out all the air from your lungs and breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and release, 2, 3, 4, and breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and release. Your eyes closed, just start to become aware of the sounds. So if there's, cars passing by on the street, or someone in the kitchen, or dogs running around, or, the hum of your computer, just be aware of the sounds around you and allow that to bring you into the space. And breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and release, 2, 3, 4. One last time, and breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and release, 2, 3, 4. And as you open your eyes, just notice how that has changed, how your perspective has changed, and how you are in the space. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Eva. To get us started, if you all don't mind, I will be sharing my screen to get us started here. All right, so Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having us here today as the keynote speaker. We are the Interactive Theater Project from UWSP in Stevens Point. To get us started, I would like to just start off with introductions so that you guys can get to know who we are a little bit more. I would just like to give a quick shout out to Ian, Okamoto, and Joe Kelly for being great team contributors and team members throughout the semester. I just want to give them a quick shout out to let you all know that they were a big part of this as well. With me, my name is Ka Yang. I am a project manager and dramaturg for the Interactive Theater Project. I am also a senior at UWSP in Stevens Point. I am majoring in arts management with a business administration minor, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Hi, my name is Eva Bower. I'm a team contributor and an actor for the Interactive Theater Project. I am a sophomore musical theater major and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Hi, I'm Carol Langhauser. I am an actor on the Interactive Theater Project. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a first-year BFA musical theater major.
Hello, my name is Emily Ruth. I am also a performer, and I am a first-year BFA acting major.
All right, and then we also have a few other members or people that I would like to say thanks to, especially Sarah E. Ross for being our excellent faculty advisor this semester. She's the one who actually put all of us together to be presenting this today. Wyatt Cross and Dr. Lindsay Berhagen for being great people to work with. To come up with a brilliant program like this today. And then special thanks once again to Dr. Lindsay Berhagen, Sarah Olson, Heather Springer, and Dean Gerlstock. So who are we? First off, I would just like to talk about our mission for today. It is to shine light on student struggles and hardships during COVID times about distance learning and how we could improve some of that moving forward. We are a project group, like I said earlier, consisting of UWSP students and Professor Sarah Ross. We actually took inspiration from the alumni Wyatt Cross. He did something similar to what we are doing, but in person in last year's teaching conference. And it was an excellent success. And I heard so many great things about it that when Sarah reached out, I was so excited to be a part of it. For this year, we took data from the NSSE Pulse survey that was sent out to faculty and students earlier in the semester. We looked at what kind of trends students were facing and what kind of hardships or anything of that matter to take into consideration to the material that we'll be presenting today. And to get a better idea, we did have individual conversations with peers, other students and classmates that wanted to talk about their struggles with us. And just as a quick side note, the settings and names that are being used in our performance today are fictional. That's just to keep certain names and things like that anonymous for the students or people who did share their stories with us. So what are we actually doing today? We will be using techniques from Theater of the Oppressed, which was first introduced by Augusto Boal in the 1970s. It uses forms of theater and performance to discuss various topics and perspectives that involve interactive techniques with the audience and its performers. By doing so, it is breaking that invisible wall that is usually there when certain performances are happening and there's that kind of divide going on. We'll be using two aspects. The first one will be borrowing from Brecht. It is to entertain and educate through a theater form, to stay active and easy to understand because some of the topics talked about can be kind of hard to get a grasp on. And then number two, active spectators or spect actors in this case. It is to show that theater is not a closed system and not reserved only for experts, but pretty much anyone who has voice ideas and other opinions as well. In this case, our audience is also a big part of the theater. Some other organizations that actually use theater of their press as a practice that I would like to briefly talk about is the CRLT Players, which is the first one from University of Michigan. They've done some sketches or mini skits that talk about sexual harassment and shifting that conversation around that topic as well. They've also done like a first generation college student experience and what first generations kind of go through. And then another group is the Center for Applied Theater in Milwaukee. They've done excellent work with educational workshops, and they had one name, Beyond Racism and Ally Building to Heal Our Nation. So these are just some topics that theater of the press can be used to shine light on and build conversations around. So for today, these are some of the things that we'll be presenting. We have a total of 3 different student-based scenarios to act out by us, the Interactive Theater Project Group. It will be one at a time with brief discussions afterwards, and we'll repeat that per scenario. If needed, I do have mini prompts to help us get going on discussions, but that's only if we need any of them at all. So please be active. But for our first scenario, it is about a student and professor one-on-one meeting. Scenario 2 is a classroom Zoom meeting. And then number 3, it is a family in a shared space. And then once again, the importance of audience. Audience participation is highly encouraged. Interact and respond to one another in a time that you feel like that you would have something to say. Comments and questions are also welcome. And it's just that we are all here to better understand student struggles during this COVID time. Some quick reminders. Again, this is a collaborative space, so please remain empathetic and compassionate. Remain open-minded. Discussion is not to place blame on anyone or any of the scenarios that we will be acting out today, but is to open dialogue and brainstorm techniques that can hopefully form better outcomes for scenarios that look similar to the ones we are presenting. Just going over some Zoom etiquette, you can use the raise your hand feature if you have something to say. Otherwise, if a conversation is going and you feel, you test out the waters and no one's really saying anything, feel free to just say what you have to. Feel free to use the chat too, if that's what you prefer. Or if you want to even remain anonymous, you can send me your comment or even to Sarah Ross by changing the filter on the Zoom chat. If you all know what I'm talking about, there's like a filter on there where you can just send your comments to one person at a time. So you can also do that too if you want to remain anonymous. But participate as you feel comfortable. This is a place for everyone to have a say. So your thoughts and your opinions matter. Okay, so that is all for me. As of now, I would like to pass this on to Professor Sarah Ross, who will be getting us started with the first scenario.
Thank you, Ka. So that was a bunch of information. I just wanted to pause and see if there were any initial questions or comments about the form that we're going to be using as we start engaging in discussion with these scenarios. Anything from our participants? Great. Then I'm going to go ahead and start our scenario by sharing a screen. If y'all are having trouble viewing this in a shared screen format, you can let me know and I can send you a link to the recordings.
While Sarah is doing that, I would just like to read a little bit about what our scenario consists of. You will be presented a conversation between Professor Malin and a student named Phoebe. This is a one-on-one meeting between the two discussing Phoebe's declining class participation and focus.
Hi, Phoebe. It's good to see you. How are you?
Hello. Okay, I guess.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm just tired. There's a lot going on and I'm just really trying to get it all done.
That's understandable. I think we're all facing the similar challenge of staying on top of the work while figuring out the new way of doing the work remotely. But I'm particularly concerned with the fact that you've missed the deadline on the last assignment. You're not participating in discussions, but mostly that you've missed several classes. I'm only seeing you once a week for Zoom class sessions. When you do attend, you're leaving Zoom before the class is over.
Hey, y'all, looks like we're having some technical difficulties here. I saw in the chat that we're not able to see the oh, I just think I don't have the right window. So let me try again. Thank you for your patience. All right, do we have?
I'm seeing your video screen.
Okay, great, thank you. Here we go.
Hi, Phoebe. It's good to see you. How are you?
Hello. Okay, I guess.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm just tired. There's a lot going on and I'm just really trying to get it all done.
That's understandable. I think we're all facing the similar challenge of staying on top of the work while figuring out the new way of doing the work remotely. But I'm particularly concerned with the fact that you've missed the deadline on the last assignment. You're not participating in discussions, but mostly that you've missed several classes. I'm only seeing you once a week for Zoom class sessions. When you do attend, you're leaving Zoom before the class is over. Can you help me understand why that is?
I'm really sorry about that. I think you are a great professor and I want to do better. This isn't how I usually am. I'm usually more on top of things, but I'm just not getting it done. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
Phoebe, you don't need to apologize to me. I'm just concerned that you'll fall too far behind in the classwork. And your participation grade is low because you haven't been staying for the entire class. You're missing a lot of class content. Can you start attending full classes?
Yeah, I want to catch up. I'll figure it out.
Okay, well, let's talk about that missed assignment. When can you submit your response paper? If I give you a week, can you email that to me by next Thursday?
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm hoping for a weekend to be able to catch up, but I've got shifts all day Saturday and Sunday, and I know my boss at my other job wants me working evenings next week.
When can you get the work done?
I think I would have some time if it was due in 2 weeks.
Phoebe, I'm not sure how you're going to keep up if you put work before college. I can work with you on a 2-week deadline for the paper, but moving forward, you've got to dedicate time to this class. The least of which is attending all Zoom classes so that you get all the course content and can participate in discussions and peer reviews. You have wonderful thoughts to contribute and your presence is valuable to the whole class.
I'm wondering if I could add to peer reviews by writing my thoughts and emailing those out. I just wasn't expecting meeting online so much this semester.
When I polled the class at the beginning of the semester about creating scheduled class meeting times or staying asynchronous, the class overwhelmingly voted to have regularly scheduled Zoom meetings. I was happy to change the format with input from the students, but now that the choice has been made, it requires follow through from all of you. I've spent many hours changing the course plan to be synchronous so that students can see each other and me and hopefully feel more engaged. You had such a strong start to the semester for the first 4 weeks or so, but you really dropped off.
I just didn't know how much data the Zoom meetings would use.
What do you mean?
Meeting twice a week on Zoom is using up all the data on my phone plan. I don't have a computer since I've been quarantined at my parents' house.
But you had told me that you weren't sick.
No, I'm not sick. I haven't tested positive for COVID. I just left campus when my roommate got a positive result.
So you should be able to participate in the Zoom classes if you aren't ill.
Out at the house, we don't really get internet. It's really inconsistent or slow, so I have trouble staying connected or I'm using all my data. But I got more hours at my job and was able to get another gig so I can change my cell phone plan soon.
Phoebe, I know this is a challenge to figure out. We're all facing struggles, but if you want to be successful in this class and in your college career, I would strongly suggest prioritizing your work as a student. Attend class. Ensure you have time to get the homework done on time. That may mean you need to work less hours and talk with your parents about getting better internet service. I am rooting for you. You're a talented student. I want all my students to succeed, but I can't treat students differently based on who chooses to join Zoom sessions and who doesn't. So let's plan for you to get that response paper to me in 2 weeks. And I'll see you in class tomorrow. The Zoom link is posted. I've got another Zoom meeting I need to go to. Is there anything else from you?
No, I don't think so. Thank you for your time.
Have a good day, Phoebe.
All right, so that was our first scenario. Does anyone right off the bat want to share some of their comments that they have? All right, so in the chat, I'm reading some of these comments. So poor Phoebe sounds like a student of mine. So sad. Cut her some slack. Are there any like red flags that you see from the professor point of view at all?
Oh, wait,
No, go ahead.
I gotta find the hand icon. All right.
Oh no, go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, Phoebe, I think, was like a mosh-up of lots of students in our class. You know, I've got one that lives on a lake in the middle of northern Minnesota that has almost no internet service. I've got one that's got multiple shifts at a local business. So everyone has like individual circumstances that are not normal during this not normal time. So what struck me with the professor was this patina of empathy and caring, or that she was rooting for her, but she really wasn't. I mean, she had her agenda, and her agenda was I don't know what her agenda was, but it wasn't student-centered. It wasn't student-centered.
Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else have anything to say?
Yeah,
I
I think I raised my hand. Yeah, it struck me that I was waiting to hear the professor ask early on, tell me what's going on with you, to elicit that. And that question didn't show up, right? And it seems important to have that question show up early and then be willing to make reasonable accommodations, because clearly there was no reasonable accommodation there. And I'm wondering how much of that is just kind of professorial obstinacy. That might be partly it, but I do think that some professors are, we've had it drilled in our head that it's really important to be consistent. It's really important to be consistent. It's really important to be consistent. And so, you know, if you make an exception for this person, what are you going to do with these others? And I think that can be a dilemma for faculty. I think this professor clearly should have made an exception. Easy call. But I'm also somewhat empathetic with professors who sometimes aren't sure if they should make an exception because they're afraid that they're going to find out, people are going to accuse them of not being consistent.
Samantha.
Yeah, what struck me as kind of concerning in the situation, and maybe I didn't hear the video exactly or what the professor said, but it sounded like they decided to do required synchronous meetings based upon a vote or consensus. And that doesn't seem like an approach we should be using. That kind of struck me as a red flag, that it should either be synchronous or asynchronous, but there needs to be accommodation for those students who are in that situation.
I like that you pointed that out, because that's something that while Sarah and I were talking, that's something that we wanted to make sure we got across. So thank you for making sure you got onto that point. And then I think I saw Deborah.
Yes, I agree with all the comments that have been shared. And I was also under the impression that we cannot require synchronous Zoom classes. In the case of this student, perhaps the session can be recorded, and then this allows her to catch up.
Sorry, I don't know how to say your name.
Valerie.
Yeah,
I thank you so much. Thank you so much for your portrayal. I really appreciate it, and that you tried to also say how the professor said, I've spent time trying to move the course, and I thought that was also kind of empathetic of the professor side. But I do want to say, moving forward, it's really complicated for all of us when we get mixed messages from administration about what is required, what's allowed. My read is in the next semester, we can say a virtual classroom has meeting times. So I think there's some room for discussion of what can we expect of each other, on both sides. What can we, because I agree with Chris that there was some patina to this, fake sympathy, but some of that's real, right? Some of that is not really knowing what to do.
And then Pam.
Yeah, so one thing that stood out to me, and I have no answer for it, I've had a lot of students who are working multiple jobs, and sometimes attending college while working 70 hours a week is just not sustainable or realistic. And so on one end, we have this administration issue of we've got to retain students, But on the other hand, there is sometimes a need to, take a semester off or take a year off and get yourself, in a good financial place where you can maybe devote more time and energy to school. And I think feeling that tension and being aware of it, that there comes a breaking point. And we've all felt it because we're working extra hours as well. And there's only so much a human body and soul can do in a semester. And I just think being aware of that.
All right, thank you for sharing. If you don't mind me asking, Lindsay, what time do we go until for this?
The session goes until 11:30.
Okay, perfect.
I think it was typed wrong on our opening screen, but yeah, 11:30.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like,
Don't
oh,
worry.
wow. Okay,
Don't
perfect.
worry.
Okay, 11:30 it is. There was a question in the chat by Becca. She asked, was there a comment about pointing students to resources? What are current resources for students around this topic? So from a student's point of view, I don't necessarily know if there are any resources to go to for, I guess, like time management or, just being so overwhelmed with everything that is going on. But what I personally have is my sister, who I just kind of go to and talk with. So, but I don't really know if there's like a university like structure to it yet. So maybe that's something that we'll have to work out on. Someone else who raised their hand, Lindsay, or am I saying your name correct?
Drisang or?
Oh, yes.
Okay, just making sure the right Lindsay. Okay.
Yeah.
I have more of a question, whereas I have, like, in particular from from when we switched to online last spring, I had some students who, well, one in particular that they had no internet access, and even phone accessibility was almost impossible based on where they had to move to. And I'm still having difficulty reaching that student since he had progressed far enough into the class. I gave him an incomplete, but I mean, I'm still stuck where I can't get the final assignments and he's still not able to contact me regularly. And I don't know what options students have for dropping when they may already be at a limit or when they're worried about financial aid, when clearly this is just not feasible for a student to try to complete online coursework in this particular mode. And I'm wondering, is that at what point do we recognize, okay, clearly the expense of what's going on for the scenario we talked about, at what point is this just or we really need to recommend a drop for the student?
And then Denise.
Okay, so I don't know, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, this is the first time I've used my phone like this. So, and I agree with a lot of things that people are saying and think that they're bringing up some valid questions. Back to your original question about the red flags from the professor, one of the things from a student perspective I was looking at is the professor wasn't necessarily listening to what the student was actually saying. And the professor was also, or maybe they were listening, but they were hearing what they wanted to hear. And they also made some assumptions because they made the assumption that Phoebe's parents could actually have the means or the motivation in order to be able to help her financially in order to get better internet, which isn't always the case, right? So that I feel like the professor could have been, while seemingly was very empathetic, was also at the same time not really hearing what Phoebe was saying.
Yeah, I think there's some part of like miscommunication that always happens, whether or not it's just between students or even with students and professors. If you all don't mind, I would like to ask another question, just kind of like putting you on the hot spot here for a second. What are some of the things that you as instructors have done to help students who are in similar situations like this? Valerie?
This is a conversation we started with the retention group on campus, but I wonder if faculty could have a better, broader across the campus conversation about using incomplete grades during this time. So it's something I've always used in my teaching, obviously with restraint and carefulness and understanding, but it says that it's for, emergency or extreme or special situations. If this isn't special, I don't know what is, right? So what could be maybe some better common and best practices across the campus for incomplete grades so that students could still stay connected to UWSP, could perhaps finish over the summer, however we could do that.
Excellent point. Anyone else have anything to say on that? Sorry, I saw Michael's hand up.
Yeah, some of the things, this has been a semester with functionally a lot of incompletes. I've given more incompletes this semester than the entire rest of my time at Point, and this is my 17th year here. But the things that actually made this work for the students that were doing things asynchronous were in large part things like being available by cell phone at any time. And so, I mean, I had it was almost every evening for a month that 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, I was talking to students because that's all that fit with their work schedules. And the issue of lack of internet for quite a number of our students, many of the ones that I had that were asynchronous were essentially working full-time or greater than full-time jobs in quite rural areas. And I mean, I had people that were they were downloading all of their videos from like a McDonald's parking lot and watching them because they didn't have computer access. So I ended up doing the opposite of what everybody said. These short videos is what people said because it keeps people entertained. But for a lot of my students, the long videos are easier to deal with than downloads. So this was a different experience this semester.
Definitely. It's been a different experience for us as students too. And I'm pretty sure that's the same thing for professors as well. And then I have Trisha, Jeff, Lori, and then Nancy.
Just a couple of things that I would let students know about were the Dean of Students grants. So there was money through the CARES grant, and there are also emergency grants through the Dean of Students. So I had a student joining my class from his car outside of his public library. And he also talked about returning there at night, like at 11 o'clock at night, and doing his work. And he was a student of color and actually had the police kind of come up, and that was scary for him. So just letting him know that there was money there, and he did apply and get some money. The computers, students not having access to a computer, the library, actually it's in the library, but it's the IT service desk, has some computers that can be checked out, some for the whole semester. Some are shorter checkouts, but those are available, especially if a student can indicate that early in the semester. They also, IT has Wi-Fi hotspots. They cost money, but they're slightly less than possibly getting internet in your area. So I think it's $40 per month that they can borrow an IT hotspot from our IT department. And then I had some students who just had trouble communicating with faculty and staff. They would write emails and they would sit there and they'd write them and rewrite them and revise them. And they were so worried about sending them, they just couldn't push that send button. And so sometimes I had a small class, I required individual meetings. So we had conversations about that. And I would say, hey, do you want me to do the first reach out? And a lot of them would take me up on that. And then once the ball was rolling, they were a little bit more comfortable with it, but they just didn't know how to start. I think Valerie mentioned incompletes. I think letting students know what that means and how they work, because if I had one student get an I and just didn't know what that was and didn't know that they needed to clear it in a semester. So just making sure that uniformly we talk about, hey, you got an I, this is what that means, or letting students know that that's an option that exists and they can potentially ask for it. And then the last one I have is just raising awareness of drop dates. I don't know that they always know that they can drop a class or that there are deadlines for that and what the W means when they get that. So some of them are not aware of if that's going to affect their GPA or not. So just kind of talking through what that is.
Thank you for sharing. And then Jeff?
Hi, I guess the first thing I want to say is we also need to be aware of just how much resilience we've seen. I offered incompletes to a lot of students this semester because right in that last couple of weeks, there was a lot going on. There were a lot of illnesses happening. The overwhelming majority, though, didn't take the incomplete. They finished their work, which was pretty remarkable. Over the last 20 years in the UW system, the exceptional majority of students taking incompletes, I haven't seen them finish. So we got to kind of be careful because most students do not finish their incompletes, at least in my experience. And so we got to be careful about how we offer those. And it's really important that we let them know that the incomplete is for a very limited number of assignments. And again, if they have a lot of assignments hanging out there, that they wouldn't possibly complete an incomplete anyway. So I think we need to be really clear with them all the way through about just how limited an opportunity this is supposed to be. And that's a good thing, because if they're not getting most of the work during the semester, they're not going to do it later either. And they're going to end up in a really tough spot. So I think that's really what we can do. The greatest problem is a lot of people mentioned in chat is just getting the students to talk to us to begin with. There's a lot we can do from if they're doing their part in just communicating. And the students I've had to have had trouble most just will not respond. So that's where we got to do a lot of work. Thanks.
I said, was it Nancy who's going next? I forgot.
I think it was. So I think it's really great seeing everybody here, and I'm glad that we're talking about all of this together, because I think that everybody experienced similar issues last term, but also unique issues. And obviously there were differences between faculty viewpoints and student viewpoints, and this is a great way for us to kind of explore that. I think that one thing that faculty need to keep in mind while they're designing their courses is that they need to build in flexibility. That's something that I always do. You can have more points available in the course than actually count toward the grade, so that students have an ability in some sense to pick and choose which assignments to complete, so that they can still achieve the grade that they want, but there's automatic flexibility so that they can so that based on whatever's happening in their lives at any particular moment, they may be able to forego particular assignments. So I think that that's really important. And I think that something that I didn't do last term that I'm definitely doing this term, because I didn't realize how much difficulty certain students would have associated with internet access. Make sure that whatever it is that you're providing to the students, you provide in a flexible way. You can certainly have your synchronous Zooms, and you can have your online, whatever, recorded posting of that Zoom. But there's no reason that you couldn't also post the PowerPoint or a PDF of the PowerPoint, so that students who may not be able to attend that, or maybe not able to download or stream that, could get a smaller file that would be less onerous for their own technological capabilities. And finally, I think I want to point back to something that Dr. Dresang had pointed out, that, you know, I've had jobs where I had to use my own car to deliver pizzas, things like that. That's a requirement of the job. And in this online format, it really is a requirement that you have access to appropriate technology. There's no shame in deciding to take a term off or 2 terms off while all of this sorts out, in order to make sure that you have what you need to complete the term. And I think that there needs to be better communication of that with students, that maybe if your access to technology really is only a cell phone, this is not a time for you to be attending college, because it will impact how much you're able to interact, how much you're able to learn, and how well you can succeed. And I think that being honest with students about that is beneficial to them and beneficial to faculty, so that maybe some of the more extreme cases might be avoided. I don't know, just kind of a thought.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I saw Valerie, and then Sarah Ross also has something to say afterwards.
Hey, Ka, I think I keep seeing Lori come in and out too. Lori Schmaling, did you have something you wanted to offer?
No, I think as things proceeded, pretty much everybody was hitting points that I wanted to share or make. The only thing I wanted to say about incompletes, and I don't know, I made the decision, the executive decision within my courses, that a pandemic simply is an ongoing emergency. So, and then the other thing, I did attempt in one of my classes with somewhat limited success, but I recognized why it was confusing instead of helping students. And I think this goes to something that Nancy had just said. I attempted to use a contract grading method so that they did have more flexibility with which assignments to turn in. There were 3 major assignments that they did not have flexibility for, but assigning grades based on percentage of work completed and trying to measure engagement partly that way as well. And that was set out in advance. So while it wasn't as successful as I had hoped, I think partly it was because it was my first attempt to do that. And I intend to do it again and use it with at least one course this semester to see if I can tweak it to make it work. But I think for some students who fell behind, when I was able to finally connect with them, it made it easier for them to figure out, how can I still get through this, instead of, oh my God, I haven't done all this work, I'll never get it done, you know, so.
So Valerie, if you have something else to add?
It was just to say, either this video or the short clips, it would be great if we had those as faculty to share with our students to open our classes this semester, right? Because then we could do a little of this in the first week of class and kind of start that conversation in a very, open and kind of equity-minded sort of way.
And then Sarah, if you have anything else to add as well.
Yeah, we can totally make that available. Thanks for that, Valerie. I also wanted to just, I know Pam Terrell had taught a grading system a couple of teaching conferences ago, or maybe it was last year. And I had been thinking that being able to grade based off of, I think what Lori was saying too, that was sort of contract-based grading, where you can offer your students like components to a project or components to an assignment. If they're able to complete 3 out of the 5 with an acceptable, then that guarantees them sort of this grade. If they're able to complete 4 out of 5 at an acceptable, 5 out of 5, etc. So that is something that popped into my mind in this conversation as an alternate way of thinking about how we're assessing assignments or organizing assignments for a student. So that the students are the ones that are in charge of the flexibility in what they feel like, how much work they feel like they can take on for any given class, project, etc. Yeah, go ahead, Pal.
Okay, sorry. In the group chat, Becca Franz, I hope you all don't mind me calling you by your first names. If you want me to call you by something else, just let me know. But she did ask, how do we get students to respond in a situation like this? Personally, from a student's perspective, it's, holding maybe just even like big class break days where you just kind of talk about what everyone's kind of feeling. And we have a little clip of that moving forward after this. So we'll take a closer look at, how that situation is being handled. But, all of you being here today, I think is like the first step as well, to bring conversations forward and kind of just talk to your students in like a big class and kind of ask them how they are doing and, mentally, where are they at? I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in, like Emily or Kara, if you have anything else to say from a student's perspective.
Yeah, I can chime in. So from what I understand, at least talking to my classmates, it does really depend on the student. Some people are more comfortable reaching out. I think a lot of it is, a lot of students feel intimidated by the one-on-one, like, okay, I need to draft this email. And as I believe, I can't remember who said before, but, drafting that email and then just being overwhelmed by, I have so much to say, I don't know how to say it, I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing. So yeah, opening up a bigger forum for students where they, feel like they're not alone against the teacher. And it's not an against situation, but, it feels isolating. And knowing that their other classmates are on the same page is a huge thing. Having those in-class discussions, we had one in one of my courses this past semester, and it was really nice to know that, we aren't alone and that everybody is in the same boat. So yeah, just being open with your students and giving them as many avenues of contact as possible.
Yeah, I agree with what Emily said. And like as first years also, like coming out of like high school where like, no matter what had to refer to your teachers as like Mr. Smith or Miss Schwartz, and like you had to keep that like professional uniformity. So like drafting those emails, you're like, do I sound professional enough? Am I using the right formats and all that? And just like sometimes that stress is like really worrisome. And like with the group scenario, like you don't have to like worry about that one-on-one conversation, because sometimes like students do like ask one of their friends, hey, can you send this for me? Like as being like the speaker of the group because you feel more comfortable with that one-on-one. So like you're sort of like delegating to another person, but like having it in the bigger group allows for that like one-on-one with the support of the group around them instead of just delegating it to another person, which sometimes doesn't fix the whole problem itself.
One thing that I found really interesting when I was talking with this group was Eva had brought up the fact that there was a moment when the class that she was in was feeling a lot of stress. They had an incoming project coming in and it required a lot of memorization, and there were auditions coming up in the department, and there was just a big stack of all of a sudden everything's due this week on Friday or whatever. I was talking with Eva about it, and you're totally willing to share your point of view, but from a professor point of view, I was like, I do not know how to help you, because I was like, well, talk to your professor. Your professor's already shown that they can be trusted, that they're empathetic, that they have provided flexibility in the past when students have needed that flexibility, especially last semester. But there was still, and I think it was felt by the whole class, there was still this hesitation to bring it back to the professor, because they didn't, the students didn't want to think that the professor, like they were trying to take advantage of the situation, and they were lazy, or they're just trying to get out of work, even though the professor had already showed that they could be trusted. Do you have anything you want to add about that, Eva?
Yeah, so this particular class, like everyone was talking. There's a BFA group chat that's all of the sophomores, the acting and musical theater majors, and everyone was talking about it, and somebody said that and it really stuck with me, that they didn't want it to seem like it was a give an inch and we'll take a mile type of situation. We didn't want it to feel like we were taking advantage of the professor, even though this professor was being very flexible. So I think something that could be done to help a situation like that is to just have professors say, what else is going on in your other classes? Do you feel like you're overwhelmed with work? Things like that. And just being aware of the workload on the students, especially during a pandemic like this. Because I know that some of my classmates had classes where they were just getting surprised with new assignments all the time. And they, felt like they were just overwhelmed. So, yeah.
And then Jim, did you have anything else to chime in?
Thanks, Ka. I just put it in the chat, but one of the ways in which I try to overcome that hesitancy on the part of students to advocate for themselves was to create breakout space in the class time, and have the prompt, what's going on with you? How can Jim help? And then, 3 students at a time could talk among themselves and report out from the class without isolating any student as being any one student as being a malcontent or trying to take advantage of the situation. And I think it created some cathartic conversation both within the breakout rooms and in the larger class.
Yeah, I was actually in one of Jim's class this past semester, and that's exactly what he did. So I can attest to that it definitely worked. We had amazing conversations in the class that we did have. And, we just kind of got to know each other, like as students too. We went into the class just kind of thinking we're just going to learn things online and never really knowing who our classmates were. But through that experience, I definitely got to know more about my classmates, and it definitely worked for when Jim had us going through that exercise. And then I see Nancy.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in for the people who are perhaps not lacking in empathy, but lacking in an ability to deal with this sort of very hands-on approach to students. And I'm not sure exactly where that works within this conference, but I know a lot of faculty members who are not at all comfortable reaching out to students and discussing students' personal problems with them because they aren't counselors and because they aren't necessarily the sort of people who, I don't know, the equivalent of give hugs. It doesn't mean that they don't care, but there are many people who are not comfortable with this level of interaction with students, and it doesn't represent a lack of caring. So just as a thought that there are other ways that faculty might express their concern with student performance and student conditions.
And then Lindsay.
And there's also an element that it is just at some point impractical to be able to offer the amount of help that would be ideal. I mean, last term I was on the 14 credit overload, and this term will be lighter to compensate. And then I have things going on with my own family, members getting COVID, members who need to be put into a long-term care facility who are refusing to. And then I have way more students than I normally would. And so many of them need accommodations in different ways and are needing extensions on assignments that normally I want to post the answers to the assignments so that students have a study aid. And the second I do that, I can't accept late work anymore. And so there are a lot of things that I did to make accommodations, but at some point it's just not possible anymore.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think it kind of goes back to what Sarah and Eva was talking about. Like, we as students too, we don't want to, take advantage of any of our professors in any kind of way. And I know professors also feel that way too about, I want to be lenient, but I don't, some of the work still has to be done. So there's that, balance that needs to be worked out there. There was a comment made by Narissa, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. In the chat, she stated, if I can find it again.
Hi, you did say my name correctly. I was just asking, I'm curious what students thought of the joint statement that came out at the end of November from administration and SGA and governance about things that faculty could do now and things that students could do now. Haven't really heard too much feedback from that, so I'm kind of curious about that.
I don't remember if I read that specific email, but I am an active event producer for Centertainment. So I sense that there are direct changes to my department where I'm working on campus. So for example, whenever we have events and things like that, we would make sure that, we would limit only 50 people to an event. People would still be 6 feet apart from one another for that social distance. So things like that, we are taking into consideration directly in my department. I don't know about like the exact email that you're talking about, but if you could just kind of briefly summarize what the email was about.
Sure. So, and I'm curious from the other students, if you got this message, probably through SGA. This was a joint statement about the difficulty that students had in the fall and trying to address some of those concerns. And so there was a statement that was released at the end of November. And I'm just wondering, so in that particular statement, it talked about what faculty could do now regarding things about Canvas, regarding things about getting in touch with professors and vice versa. So I guess the first question is, did people get it? Sounds like COD did not. Did other people get that?
Just to chime in really quick, because so much communication is happening over email this semester, a lot of stuff gets lost in the shuffle. And I'm sure that you guys recognize that as well, because I imagine you're getting a bunch of emails from students. So personally, I don't remember receiving that specific email. I'm positive I did, but I don't recall it off the top of my head.
I think it came from the chancellor to everybody, and I think it also came through SGA. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that just reminds me that you know, when we try to address these things, there are some communication gaps, obviously, and that is being revealed right now.
Yep.
Good to know.
Ava, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to tag on to what Emily was saying. I used before pre-pandemic, I would get probably 2-3 emails a day on my school email. Then I, didn't have internet on the way back from traveling back home from the university. I live in Michigan and I'm about 8 hours away from campus. So that entire 8 hours I didn't have internet, and I got back on internet when I got home, and I had about 2,500 emails. So there's a lot coming in, and it can be overwhelming. And so just trying to keep up with that just feels like a huge task. So it is very easy for stuff to get lost.
Does anyone else have anything to say?
Can I just chime in about that? I think that's something that we all here need to figure out how to address. So when we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out solutions, and if those solutions are not read, and students are missing them because they're unable to keep up with email, we have to figure out some other mechanism. I don't know what that is. So I guess that's a question I pose to everybody here.
Well, I think as instructors, we have a responsibility to, like, that big information stuff. I think it's really helpful if we can act as a conduit for that information, just in, beginning of class announcements, just to make sure that if the students missed it in the email, at least they heard someone say something about it at some point, and then might be able to seek more information.
And then Valerie, I saw your hand up as well.
I yield. That was my point. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Michael?
This comment on email and other communications, I think it's pretty consistent with both students and faculty. I'm averaging about 120 emails a day, and I'm assuming that's pretty consistent with what other faculty are doing. And if it took just 1 minute an email, that's still 2 hours. And I wish it only took 1 minute an email. That is a consistent issue, and I'm not sure how that can be addressed, but it is burdensome. I mean, thousands of emails in a week.
Thank you for your comment. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I think,
Otherwise, otherwise we'll be moving on to actually our third scenario that we have planned out for today. Any last comments or anything?
I think we should just go ahead and introduce. We're going to skip our second scenario because it's kind of a bit longer, but it does talk about being in that class when you just have a black screen from a professor point of view, that students have chosen not to turn on their cameras for those synchronous classes and aren't participating, and the frustration of the professor. I think a lot of y'all experience that either on your own to just take a class and check in, or through the suggestion of the administration to go ahead and have that break day or break week last semester. And it dealt with some of the issues that students brought up, but we got no time because we were having good conversation. So we're going to move on to the third, and I'll let Ka introduce that while I share screen.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so for our third scenario, it is going to be about a family who is now in a shared space due to the pandemic and just their situation as of now. We'll get to see how they navigate or try to navigate in this new environment. So that's around summarizing the next scenario.
So I'm in class in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll get off in a sec, but I just got to finish this discussion topic first. It's due today.
Kat, I need to be able to.
Sarah, it's still no.
Why didn't you do your
We're
homework?
not seeing the video. Just to let you know. Sorry for the interruption.
No, thanks. I need to know that information. Let me try again.
Looks good.
So I'm in class in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll get off in a sec, but I just got to finish this discussion topic first. It's due today.
Kat, I need to be able to log into my class. Why didn't you do your homework earlier?
I'm almost done. I forgot this discussion until this morning, and you were using the computer all morning. I hate typing from my phone anyway. Plus, the professor takes off points for any misspellings and stuff on our discussion posts.
Okay, well, you can write your discussion post on your phone. I can't take my class on the phone.
I'm almost finished. And you know I can't type with my large thumbs.
Whatever, I need to move the computer because the lighting in here sucks and I'm presenting in class today. Plus, Dad is on the phone and he always talks way too loud. Kat, get off the laptop.
And done, okay? I'm gonna go make some lunch.
Can you wait? The kitchen has the best lighting and Wi-Fi. I was gonna do my presentation in there.
No, this is my only chance to eat before late tonight. I have class right after you, and then a full afternoon scheduled working at the tutoring center. I literally don't have a break until after 7.
Okay, can you just wait? If you wait until my class is done or whatever, I will buy you dinner.
With what money? You know what? I don't want to discuss this. I'll just grab a granola bar and hope that fends off starvation for a few hours.
Drama queen. What's wrong with the computer? I can't log in. Did you do something to the computer? What did you do?
Nothing. It was working just fine. Let me see. It's frozen. My discussion is frozen. I don't think it went through. What's going on?
Dad!
Dad can't help us. He's on the phone.
If you had just posted off of your phone, this wouldn't have happened.
Whatever. Just disconnect and reconnect it to the Wi-Fi. There. It works. Oh, while you're here, send me your schedule so I know when you're in class next semester so I don't bother you.
Yeah, fine. Later. Go away. I'm logging in.
Hey, Chris. I need to print off some reports and I need the laptop for a few minutes before my meeting with the client.
Mom, I have class right now.
It's not on the schedule.
Mom, it's on the schedule. I have a presentation. I've got to use the computer.
Log in on your phone.
My PowerPoint is on the laptop.
We'll send it to yourself so you can view it on your phone.
I don't even know how that's going to work. I need to share my screen on Zoom. I don't think I can do that on the phone. Mom, where's your file?
It's in my folder under work file. I think it's named Schwartz report, maybe.
Okay, there it is. There, I sent it to the printer. Can I do anything else for anyone before I start class?
You could make me some lunch.
Girls, enough. Be quiet. I've got a phone.
All right, initial reactions to that at all? Has anyone been in like similar situations to this? Oh yeah, I'm seeing some comments in the comment section. Real scenario, yeah. Laurie?
So the only place that I can get decent internet in the house is also the main thoroughfare for an open floor plan home. And I literally have a bedroom right off the door where people have to knock to make sure it's safe for them to come out. So it's not just students experiencing this, but I did have also a student this semester who that student and their 4 roommates all had class at the same time, all different classes. And so therefore their internet obviously wouldn't support, I mean, they had asynchronous options and I gave that, but this is also a class that had a lot of discussion. It's, yeah, yeah, too familiar.
Yeah, there's always something going on in every family. So this is just a little snippet of what it may look like. Anyone else have any reactions to this? If you all don't mind me asking, and if you are comfortable with sharing, are there any situations that you've personally been in that are like just crazy experiences that you are willing to share? Lindsay?
Well, it's a very minor one, but I think everyone could use a good laugh. So I have my students do honor lock. And so they do get a video recording and audio recording, make sure that they're not looking stuff up, because my class, it's really easy to just get the answers offline really fast. One student was like, her boyfriend was living with her, came into the room and was standing behind her. He's like, how's it going? Oh, it's going good. It's like, here, how about I give you a back rub? And so he starts rubbing her back, and she's like, she turns to him and gives him this nasty look. You realize that you're being recorded right now. He gives this girlish scream and runs out of the room.
Erin?
So I have 3 kids, 10 and under, and they were home between Thanksgiving and Christmas, my older 2 for e-learning, and then my 4-year-old's daycare got shut down due to a COVID outbreak. And so at the start of the semester, I was very open with my students that my house is chaos. I'm working from home because I have no idea what's going to happen with my kids. I have a dog who you can probably hear in the background snoring, who my students got to meet all semester. And so I just, I let them know that whatever happens, happens. I mean, this is not ideal for any of us, and this is fine. And I had so many of my students comment towards the end of the semester, like how much they enjoyed when my 4-year-old would pop in, or how much they enjoyed hearing my dog in the background. Like they understood, and I think it took some of the pressure off of them, when their roommates popped in and did something crazy in the background, they knew I wasn't going to get upset about it. And so it helped with community building in that respect, I think.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I guess I'll just kind of briefly share an experience of mine, but I was taking a media class, and the class is very based on participation and discussion based. But as our professor, similar to your situation, his kids' daycare also got shut down for the same reason. And so he was babysitting his daughter that day, and she was very energetic that day. And we happened to talk about Me Too that day, about the movement of Me Too. And so she was in on it for the whole entire conversation. It was just like, it was a different experience, but that's something that definitely happens in our Zoom meetings these days. So Donna or Donna?
Donna, very good, very good. I would not go, excellent, very good. Extra points. Yeah, I noticed that Valerie wrote that her students jokingly asked about that. My first class period last semester, my neighbors were doing some work and they cut my internet during the first class. And it took a long time to get back on. I mean, it felt like ages, but it was probably only like 10 minutes. But and of course, I got on and I could read all the chats. I can't believe she's not back yet. And I said, yeah, neither can I. And I said, I have no idea what happened, because at that time I did not know. But I then I instituted a policy that I am going to put in the syllabus about what happens if I lose internet. You know, how long should you wait? And what I'm going to do is you wait 15 minutes. And if I can't get on in 15 minutes, class is canceled and I'll figure something out, just so they know. And thankfully, it never happened again, but I'm going to be prepared this time.
Sarah?
I just wanted to share one of the student stories that we were able to get with this just sort of being a lighthearted way to in this conference, but at the same time, that student who had just a really bad home since that wasn't conducive really for just healthy living, and certainly not for focus and to get work done, not just not having internet or connectivity, but really the home situation was pretty bad. And prior to COVID, had really relied on the spaces throughout campus to be able to do work and to be able to just kind of spend some time during the day as well. And while I know this student was able to work with resources here on campus and in the community to get in a better situation, that was a bit of a shock that, just another way that their attention and their focus had to be pulled in order to fix the fact that now everything is going to be online for this student, and they're not going to have that opportunity to get into the classroom, to be around their peers for that support. That was much more a part of about just healthy living and feeling engaged, feeling belongingness, and not just about making sure they're getting their coursework done. It was a frightening story to hear, but luckily I was glad in checking back in with that student that some good resolutions had happened since we first talked.
Lindsay?
I'm sorry, I forgot to lower my hand from last time.
Oh, okay. No, I was reading your comment too, and that was hilarious too. So thank you. Oh, or someone, another Lindsay, shared her story too. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Karen?
Yes, thank you. I have a relatively lighthearted story about advising. It's part of teaching, as we all know. One of my advising appointments was with a young woman, and she appeared on Zoom in the video window, and I said, "Oh, what an adorable kitchen!" She's sitting at a kitchen table with pretty windows and kitschy curtains and all that kind of stuff. And she goes, "Yeah, I know. This is my sister's house. I'm babysitting for her kids because blah 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 blah." And so we were discussing our advising thing, and all of a sudden, basically all HE double hockey sticks broke loose as these two kids and two dogs just came inside and rampaged through the kitchen, knocked over some chairs, the whole 9 yards. She was horrified, absolutely horrified. And I just told her, don't worry about it. Where you are, that's going to happen. It's not a big deal. What are the kids' names? And so she introduced me to the two kids and the two dogs. And then we went, we were talking about something, and I said something like, well, sometimes I do really dumb things. And one of these little boys comes up and looks right in the camera, like between my student and the camera, and says, "That's a bad word. You shouldn't say that." Shaking his little finger at me and all that. And I went, "You are absolutely correct. I'm sorry. I won't say that. I won't say that word around you again." So, very, very entertaining things can happen during advising, and you just have to make sure that the students know that it's not the end of the world.
Definitely. Anyone else have anything to share? Otherwise, looks like we have 10 minutes left. Does anyone have like a brief question they have or anything while we still have some students here? Narissa, yep.
Well, I have a question actually for everyone here, and it kind of relates to what I asked earlier, and Mary alluded to this too, but what do we do about the communication problem? It sounds like everyone is inundated with emails, so they're not responding to that. it sounds like a lot of, at least the students here did not seem to get the message that we tried to spend quite a bit of time on with governance and students and administration about the fall semester and next semester. So it's an open question. What do we do about that? We continue to have communication issues. I know Nick Schultz said that she would be willing to help, but I am at a loss.
Kara, did you have something to say?
Yeah, so as a student, like I do like, because I was reading some of the comments in the chat as well about like some teachers not giving out their phone numbers for like texting and some doing it. But I will say that for us as students and like as part of my generation, like most of us have learned text before we even learned about email. So like texting comes natural to us. Like sometimes like we'll see like 40 emails in our email box and we'll think that's like a lot, but then we'll see like 80 text messages and we'll be like, oh, that's nothing. I'll be able to respond to that like super fast. So like I think that might be a little connection barrier because like we're so used to texting and like using our phones for like that. But like while some teachers are like mostly on emails, like there is that little barrier, but like I feel like where was I going again? Texting thing.
No, texting is a form of communication. That makes sense. I think in a text though, we wouldn't want to send like a huge email. So maybe a text to alert you to read something would be better.
Yeah, like a text to like alert about like an important email or like Sarah said, like at the beginning of class, say, hey, did you guys receive this email? Make sure you're checking your email also, because I know some of my friends have said like, oh, I don't check my email. And like my dad has raised me to like constantly be checking my email. So I just go, dude, you got to check your email. So like also like teachers reminding you, hey, check your email. Remember to watch out for this. This is important. This has the deadline. This has a certain statement you need to read and think about. So just like having that like verbal also thing, like if you have an asynchronous class of like saying, remember, check your email. Don't forget about this. Like just constant reminders.
Okay, and it sounds like the Canvas announcements may also be a good place. What do you think of that?
Maybe as well, like sometimes with me for Canvas announcements, I get those also as emails.
Okay.
Like those are two spots, like just also like just the verbal, like you like sometimes physically saying it to the student, check this, watch out for this, remember this is happening.
Okay, thank you.
And then I have Jim, Jill, Pam, and then Emily.
Just quickly responding to your question, Narissa, I think we need to rely on multi-channel communication. Sending an email at the end of November is not going to be effective long-term communication. The message needs to be rephrased, resent through email and through other communication channels. It's too easy to miss a one-shot, no matter where it's presented.
I agree with that, and thanks, Jim. And I think I think our provost needs a little nudging to also do that because sometimes he has a little bit of reluctance with that. So I will remind him to. Thank you.
And then Jill.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off of that as a student. I'm a non-traditional student, so I look at my emails, I read my emails, but when I get an email sent to the entirety of the UWSP student population, I read it, I save it in a folder, and because it doesn't directly apply to me and I don't think that my voice really will make that big of an impact on the response, it's in my head and out of my head, just like that.
That's helpful. Thanks, Jill.
I believe I was next. Sorry. I would just say, bouncing off of what Kara, I believe, said about Canvas reminders, one thing that a professor of mine did was in each Canvas reminder at the end, he added comment X, Y, or Z to make sure you've seen this message. And just those little prompts like that kind of make sure that the students are reading the whole thing. at least for me, were really helpful.
Right.
Because it holds you accountable. That's
Sounds
just
good.
a small thing, but I found it very nice as a little reminder.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Emily.
Pam?
Pam?
Yeah, so and that's helpful because what I ran into, my students asked if I would send a weekly email, just kind of, here's what we talked about, here's what you need to do in order to be ready for next week, kind of thing. So I did that, but it was clear that many students still weren't reading those. And for 2 exams, I had like 25% of the exam was something you had to do before the exam and upload. And my exams had a time limit on them. Now they were over multiple days, but there was still, once you started, there was a time limit. And I'd get emails from students about, there's no question for this. It says I'm supposed to upload something. And it was something I had said in class. My Zoom classes were recorded and uploaded. I had emailed, and it was like, I don't know how else. I have conveyed this information in like 5 different ways, and I don't know how else to get it to you. So maybe doing what Emily just suggested about having some type of prompt on Canvas or something where they have to say, yes, I've read it. And then if they haven't, I email them or contact them one more time and then figure I've done my due diligence. The rest is on you. But that was very difficult for me. And I'm sure the students were freaked out too, but it was just like, read your email.
I think,
and then Mike.
Yeah, just real quick, that comes up. It's really interesting because we have a session later about the students' perspective with Canvas, which kind of blew my mind when I was going and students were sharing their screens of how they are navigating, like how they are navigating information, or at least the students that we're talking to. So I think that would be a good insight later on. I know that Ka is going to call on Michael and then Lori, but we're nearly at the end of time. So maybe those 2, and then we'll wrap up.
I just had a really quick question for the students. In general, do they have, the students that are on this, do they have the Canvas app on their phone? And do they generally have email on their phone? Because it seems like that would almost make it, I'm just curious if that is the case or if it's literally not the way they use it.
Yeah, I guess I can quickly chime in this. I do have both of the apps on my phone. So whenever, a grade is put in or something, I'll get like a pop-up on my phone saying your grade for so-and-so has been updated, or, some things like that to give me a notification. So I do have that for both the email and Canvas on my phone. So I don't know if that's the same case for the other students, but it does look like we are running out of time. I'm so sorry. Does anyone have a quick, Lori did have a quick comment to add, correct?
Sorry, I'm not sure it's quick. I'm going to maybe send an email to yeah, I don't want to hold people up.
Okay, perfect. All right. I feel like that is it for our session. Thank you for all of you for being here. And yeah, I don't know if Sarah or anyone else has anything else to add, but thank you for being here, and hopefully some things kind of, brought up in conversation was good on your end. And yeah, thank you for this experience overall too. So
I want to thank all the students for sharing your stories and your experiences and being willing to sort of talk this through with us, because as someone said in the chat, there's lots of thanks in the chat, but clearly there's a hunger to have these conversations. So it really means the world. Look forward to seeing everybody in future sessions. Sorry, we don't have tomato soup and pasta bar massages this year, but hopefully you're still finding this restorative in other ways. So see you all at noon, I hope. Again, thank you so much to Sarah and Ka and all the students. Really amazing. Appreciate it.
all right, thank you.